What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Zach and Pat Show. I'm Zach.
I'm Pat.
This is the show about manhood, fatherhood, entrepreneurship, and the mentality it takes to be successful at those things. And we'll probably sprinkle in some helpful real estate advice too, because that's what Pat and I do. You know, guys, life can be tough. We can go through some things and struggle at times, but this is the show to let you know that you're not alone. So if you're someone out there going through any of these things, this is the show for you. All right, guys, let's talk about something we all need. High quality, comfortable, stylish clothing that actually holds up in real life. Whether you're grinding at work, hitting the gym, or just hanging out, the Normal brand has you covered. I've been rocking their gear, and let me tell you, it's not your average clothing line. They've nailed it perfect with the perfect blend of durability, comfort, style, whether it's a go-to rugged Henley, a hoodie, a button-down that doesn't make you feel like a stiff, the Normal brand is where it's at. The best part is you can support the show while upgrading your wardrobe. Just hit the link in the description below. Check out their collection. Trust me, once you try it, you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. The Normal brand. Made for real life, built to last. Now go check them out.
Shout out to our friends over at Captain Beard Co. Guys, if you are looking for beard care products, shampoo, conditioner, body wash, give Captain Beard Co. a try. They have this unbelievable beard butter, balm, oils, and then it smells amazing. Ladies, if you're looking for something for your men as a gift to help with their grooming, check them out. Also, if you guys are looking to just set the mood one night, candles, unbelievably smelling candles made with all natural ingredients here locally to St. Louis. Give them a shot. Also, while you're there, use the promo code Zach and Pat for 10% off your purchase.
Hey there, guys. I really appreciate you checking out the Zach and Pat Show. If you can obviously tell, we are a newer podcast, but one way we're really trying to grow the show is trying to get up the amount of subscribers we have. So, you know, if you're watching the show and you're getting something out of it, we'd really appreciate it if you could click that subscribe button. That would help us out a ton. Please click that button. And now back to the show. We have a very special guest in studio. He is a friend of mine. I've been training jiu-jitsu with him for a long time now. He is a wealth management advisor, a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, a father. He is a collector of many things, which we are certainly going to get into. The great and powerful Bill Brown. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to have you here. Bill, you know, for the people out there that don't know you, let's just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, you touched on a couple of them. So, a father, two great kids, a wealth management banker at U.S. Bank. You mentioned collector of a lot of things. I do collect a lot of things, but mainly I collect things with a store of value. I like to look at it as an investment, but also things that I enjoy. And then jiu-jitsu. You know, you and I have been training jiu-jitsu for a long time. So jiu-jitsu, lifting weights, playing basketball. That's kind of my life in a nutshell. That's what I do on a day-to-day basis is family, jiu-jitsu, basketball, collecting things.
And Bill can dunk a basketball, and he's about the same height as me. So, or maybe you're an inch taller. I don't know, but which is fucking impressive.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, not anymore.
Got some ups.
Not anymore. But yes, a lot of people know me for being able to dunk a ball back in the day.
So you grew up with the love for the love of basketball?
Oh yeah. I started playing basketball at a very young age. Even being short, I didn't let that get in the way. I just worked really hard and, you know, played a lot of basketball. And with anything practice, you know, you get better over time. So that's what got me into collecting as well. Some shoes and some cards. And
yeah. So where did what was the first thing you started with? Like, as far as like, cause you collect cards, shoes, gold and silver, like all these like
watches,
like all these cool things. Like, what was the first? Like, what really got you into it from the beginning?
Yeah, I would say cards at a very young age. And I say a young age, but 9-10 years old, I was outside playing and everything. And then I went and was hanging out with some cousins at one point, and they were trading basketball cards. And I watched a lot of basketball that time. I was a huge Michael Jordan fan. And they started saying, hey, why don't you start collecting cards? So I was like, okay. So I started buying packs, and in the beginning, it was just we would trade cards, literally just trade them. We didn't care about the value. We didn't care about any of that. I would get say my cousin, you know, collected Charles Barkley. I would find some Barkleys. I would trade it to him for some Jordans.
Yeah.
Little did he know that was a really good trade for me now. But at the time, it was just us having a good time.
The guy you liked.
Yeah. It was like, hey, I found this in a pack. You want to trade me for the guy that I want? And I was finding, you know, if you talk about basketball, Magic and Barkley and Bird and Patrick Ewing and all these guys, and I would trade them for Jordans. And again, I always say my cousins, you know, kind of hate me for that because I have an extensive Jordan collection now. But at that time there was no value. It was just we were trading because that's who he liked. And then a couple of years went by, and then I ran across somebody that said, hey, well, this card's worth this. This card's worth this. I'm going to trade you this for 2 of those. And I was like, well, that's not a very good deal. What, but and then I started getting into, I was like, okay, well, Jordans are worth more. So then I had to start really, and that's where it kind of sparked.
And how long, like how old were you when like you kind of realized this?
Probably 11 or 12
Okay,
is
so
when I started paying attention to it.
Okay.
And then that's what got my wheels turned. That's what I think led me into sales and some of the things that I've done in life is because I started to learn at a very young age, hey, I can take this. It's worth more to this individual than what it might be worth.
Yeah, it can make sense for being a wealth management advisor,
Yeah. Yeah. So, so then I started looking at values and I said, okay, this is worth X and I can trade it for this. What are those worth? Now sometimes they're not worth face value. And we can get into that when we talk about, trading, but I might be able to take that and trade it for something else of higher value. So, cause it depends on what's important to the other person. One of my biggest trades, and I can kind of talk about here, is this kid liked Alonzo Mourning, and Alonzo Mourning was hot. It was rookie year. It was Shaq and Alonzo Mourning's rookie year. And I happened to come across an autographed Alonzo Mourning, and it didn't mean anything to me, but it had some value. So I traded it to this guy. He did the trade. He was like, hey, I'll give you these 2 cards for this Alonzo Mourning. And I was like, okay. And I brought those cards. I showed you guys here a little bit earlier, but I traded that Alonzo Mourning for 2 Jordan cards. One was a second year base card, and one was a rookie year Jordan sticker. Well, that Alonzo Mourning card now is worth $20. I think the cards that I brought, those 2 particular cards I brought, are worth about $8,000.
Wow.
And he thought that was a good deal.
Yeah. And
So
when was this trade?
Oh, this was when I was like 13 or 14.
So this is a long time ago.
And Jordans went up over time. So
Sure.
that's why I mean a store value. I didn't know at that time, but now if you buy a Michael Jordan card, a Kobe Bryant card, a Wayne Gretzky card, there's all these players that are retired. If you get a hold of one of their cards, they're only going to go up in value because of inflation. It's not necessarily they go up in value. It's the dollars going down in value. It's one way to think about it. But, trying to find that hot new prospect sometimes is a gamble, where if you can find the Hall of Famers and you find a graded card, or you find those have a store value.
What is a graded card?
That's like
It's got at the top.
it's like those.
So see.
Oh, I
You
see.
can see 'em.
Okay. So it's like that. Now, where does that sticker come from? Like, is that like
This is you send off to this company. So
Okay.
there's different grading companies out there.
I see.
Probably the most well-known one is PSA.
Okay.
But there's a lot of other grading companies, Beckett, BC.
So you send the card off and then they make sure it's real.
Make sure it's real. They grade it, and then they, hopefully send it back to you.
Yeah. I was going to say, is that like a worry that some people have that like, is there sketchy grading companies out there that like,
There's been some grading companies that have come and gone, but like PSA, they're very reputable, they're very large, organization. So you don't have to worry too much about that. But you got to think about, I'm putting this card, like some of my cards, I'm just personally scared to send off because you're putting them in the mail. You pay warrant, you pay for the insurance.
Sure.
You send it off, it gets there. They got to take it out of the pack. They got to grade it. They got to put it back in the case. And all of those steps give me anxiety.
Sure.
When you're talking about my Jordans. So, and some of them I don't plan on selling. So there's really, for me, it doesn't make sense to grade it. If I ended up going, to the point where I want to sell them, I'll probably send them all off in bulk and get them graded so I can get more, more money for them.
Yeah.
But if you don't have any interest in selling them at this point, then I really don't want to go through that anxiety of sending it through the mail system.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, for sure. That's the first thing I'm thinking. Like, man, the mail is sketchy.
So you've had those 2 cards since you were 13. How? I mean, I'm assuming you just put them in a case immediately because those things look like they're in perfect shape.
Yeah. And I learned that at a young age. When you were a kid, you were always looking at the corners. You're like, are the corners good? Or, now they look at corners, they look at centering, they look at the surface. They'll look at the card in different ways. I don't know what all they do, but when you send it off, they look at all those things. But as a kid, you just wanted the card to look good. So I put it in a little plastic case. So you got to think that card's from 1986 and it looks in that
brand new.
Look at this card. This is 1971.
Wow.
And it looks brand new.
Julius Erving.
Julius Erving rookie. This card's 1950. I have to find the print date on it, but 1950 or 60.
Bill
Wow.
Russell.
Oh,
Holy
wow.
shit. Wow,
Yeah.
dude.
So to your point, you just put it in a case.
Yeah.
Now there's a ton of people out there that didn't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why they're grading cards now in today's world. So those have a lot of value because of the shape they're in.
Wow, man.
Yeah, man, you really open. You were watching the UFC fights one night, and you were, showing me all these, and like, I mean, I've always heard that, Jordan and other cards are worth money, but like, you really opened my eyes to like how much money and like what, and like just I just didn't realize how many. You've got an insane collection.
Yeah.
I mean, my two assistants, they buy and trade cards all the time.
Really?
And they probably make an extra, if I had to guess, $15,000, $16,000 a year.
Oh, yeah.
Trading cards.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. One thing to think about, like with the Jordan rookie, a lot of people don't realize this. They know it's worth a lot of money, but like a PSA 9 is worth probably 19 to 20,000. You can get it on eBay right now, which is, there's some really reputable people on there. But a PSA 10 is $500,000.
Oh wow.
Just that one grade difference.
what?
Is PSA 10 the highest?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
a Gym Mint 10. But then there's also what they call the pop, how many pops there are. So PSA keeps track of how many
Of
cards
those
get sent in and how many get traded. So there's some cards out there that you might not think. Like there's a card, I can't remember the name, but it's a 1987 card, and it was just a base model card. But when people are trying to put together the 1986 Fleer basketball set, this particular card, if they're trying to put together a complete 9 set or a complete 10 set, there was a base card in there, and the name's eluding me, but it's worth like $1. It was for a really long time. And then they found out that the pops on it were only like 3 10s and like 3 9s ever.
What are the
Mhm.
pops?
How many of
How
each?
many
Oh,
of them
okay.
each got graded that? So
Got
a
it. Okay.
PSA 9 of this card is rarer than a Jordan. It's not Jordan,
Yeah.
but
Right.
it's rare because and if
There's
you
only
have
so
people,
many of them.
yeah, so you have these, what I call ultra wealthy people that have huge collections, and let's say they want to put together a complete PSA 10 set. They have 3 cards. They to complete that set, there's 3 of them, so they're going to pay a premium for that card.
Sure.
So, and those are the things in collecting that you don't really know until a little bit of time goes by.
Yeah, because something like you said, when you were 13, it wasn't worth very much. But
Yeah.
like, look at it now.
Like Kobe, Kobe's a really good example. Kobe Topps Chrome in 1996 was the first chromium card. Upper Deck passed on it, and then Topps bought the technology to do the chroming. So Kobe Bryant, 96, the biggest basketball card, Topps Chrome, the biggest card, not just in basketball, but Topps Chrome released in basketball. Well, Kobe's do a thing called greening, and all of their cards kind of turn green because the chrome, kind of messed up. But if you can find those that didn't green, and it's a Kobe Bryant rookie card,
Yeah.
those are premium
money.
cards. Yeah.
Oh, man.
You just happen to put it in a case.
Yeah.
And it happened to not green.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So even in cases, they would green.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still worth a lot of money.
Sure.
But if you can get one that's
Yeah.
not green, it doubles.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Damn. Okay, so you started with the basketball cards. What was the next obsession?
Oh, it was shoes. It was Jordan shoes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people that know me are going to see this podcast, and a lot of people know I'm a big shoe guy. I started flipping shoes just to buy the shoes I want.
Okay.
So what I found was, hey, I can buy these SB Dunks, or I can buy these Kobe's, or I can buy these other Jordans that maybe I don't want. I don't like that colorway or whatnot, but I can buy them, and the secondary market on them is so large that I can flip them, I can sell them, get enough money to pay for that initial purchase, and then pay for my other shoe. That's what started it. And I did that for a number of years. But then that industry, the secondary industry on Jordans and Kobe's, SB Dunks, small dunks, the low top
Low
dunks.
top.
That's mainly what I focus on, just because I know that market. There's a lot of other people that do Yeezys and they do all these other shoes, but I don't know those. So I don't really go, to market with that.
Yeah,
But
we had some early guests on when we were still recording in his podcast that they started a whole company on flipping shoes, flipping
Yeah.
every type
They're
of shoes.
They're like 20-year-old kids,
Yeah.
and they created this they were
STL kicks or
what did they
something
tell me?
like that.
They were selling like 300 pairs a month or something.
Something like that,
crazy.
yeah.
Like
Oh,
they were-
yeah.
like that's like they made a business out
They're
of
like
it.
the margins are freaking huge on these things.
oh yeah,
So,
they can be massive.
Yeah.
If you get the right colorway, And what's weird about shoes, what I think is still weird about shoes, is you can have, let's say a Jordan 1 is a pretty, I mean, that usually sells, but a Jordan 1, what's it called? Bread, black, red, and white, the Chicago colors.
Yeah.
That'll sell more than a Jordan that's the North Carolina colors. It'll sell for significantly more. So it's just the color differences in the same line of shoes sometimes makes a big difference.
Makes sense, I guess.
No, I guess,
if
yeah,
it wants a more popular color, more people like the black. I
Well,
know the
but-
exact shoe you're talking about. I've seen it many times.
But also think the history of it. I mean, Jordan didn't get the Nike Airs or Nike Jordans until he was out of college. So,
Right.
I mean, those are more, I don't know, I guess history wise probably puts a little bit more to it than,
Yeah.
because he never wore Nikes when he was in college.
Yeah, he was an
So,
Adidas guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he went, and the other thing about the breads, the Jordan 1s, a lot of people don't know a little bit of the history about that, is they were banned in the NBA.
Yeah. Because you had to be like all one color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Nike
he was getting,
paid the fines and all that for him to wear them.
Yeah, so he was getting fined and just he was wearing them anyway. And
Yeah,
getting
Well,
fined.
Nike said that Nike paid for the fines
Yeah.
so he could wear them.
yeah,
That's hilarious.
which was a great,
Boy,
great
for
move
them.
for
Yeah.
Nike.
Yeah.
For
Oh, yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Now,
Did you ever watch that movie?
The Last Dance?
No, the one with Ben Affleck and Nike and
Oh,
so,
yes. Yeah, that was a good one. What was
Yeah.
that called? I can't remember the name of it, but yes, I did watch it. It was
We
really
need,
good
we need a
movie.
Jamie in here. Like, hey,
Yeah,
Jamie,
pull that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another great documentary out there about shoes and Jordan and all that particular is it's called Shoe Man. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
And that tells a lot of history behind, behind Jordan, but it also goes into the history between AAU basketball, how college coaches started getting paid and started getting sponsorships. So that's a really good YouTube to watch. Well, if you're interested in that type
Oh,
of
for
topic.
sure. I mean, it's super interesting. So then, so you go from shoes and then, you've gotten into other stuff as well, right?
Yeah, watches. So
Watches.
it kind of always evolves. Some people, and then now I'm looking at maybe flipping cars, but
Yeah, you're a big muscle car guy.
Yeah,
You're always
yeah.
driving since I've known you, you've had a few different cars.
yeah, I like cars. But watches are the same thing. Watches, if you buy them correctly, it's a store of value. So, and I bought a watch. I think it was 2002, 2003. It was a Datejust Rolex. It was $7,500. I wore that watch for 5 or 6 years, and I turned around and sold it for $9,500.
Damn.
So that's, to answer your question, that's whenever I was like, oh, I can do this with watches.
Yeah.
Just like shoes, just like whatever. So, but there's a little bit more research that goes into that, though.
Into watches.
Yeah, because those can, when you're dealing with higher dollars, they fluctuate more.
Mm.
And then there's some watches, like Breitling's a really good brand. But from my experience, Breitling asks a premium up front. Their prices usually drop, and then you can buy them at a discount. And then they kind of either stay there or go up a little bit if you buy them right. But just going out and trying to buy a Breitling, you're probably not going to be able to flip that. In my experience, I know some people probably have had success with that.
So it's better to buy a used Breitling than,
Yeah. Versus like a Rolex, like some Rolexes come out with special colors. And if you can find them at retail, they're probably going to go up. We experienced that with, they came out with like a Tiffany blue face. It was really sought after. I think it was like a $15,000 watch, and it immediately was selling for 23. So that's an 8,000, but you had to be able to get it. Same thing with shoes. You have to be able to get them. You can't always just go out and buy all the shoes. Like I hit a pair, I don't know if you guys seen it this morning. I hit a pair of Kobe's. They're called the Whatnots. I hit a pair of those this morning. I'm going to double my money on those, but I could have easily not hit them.
So how do you go about buying? Like, how does one go, like, buy them? You have to, like, be waiting for them to drop and, like, be waiting on your phone to
waiting on your phone. Yeah. They usually drop at 9:00 not every day, but you can go to the Nike app and you can kind of see when the drops are coming. You can do a little bit of research ahead of time to see what the secondary market is on them. But the key there is getting them. There's some shoes that I don't know what the numbers are. If we were to make up, arbitrary numbers and say there's 20 million shoes made, but there's 50 million people trying to get them.
Yeah.
They sell out. They sell out immediately. So what happens, you go on the app, they drop, they say, they're ready to purchase. You click purchase, and then thing pops up and it says you're in line. And then you just wait. And then you see those got them posts that a lot of people do.
Yeah, you do.
I do them. Yeah. So that says, hey, got them. But more often than not, you get the email that says, sorry, you weren't selected.
Oh, wow.
So, and then it's, you got to have, You know, I got my wife's on there trying to get them for me. My son's sometimes on there. My daughter's on there trying to get them. I got my mom doing it.
Got
My mom flips shoes.
Really?
I showed her how to do it, and she's probably flipped 20, 30, 40 shoes
Oh, wow.
just in the past couple of years.
That's cool.
You know, because it's real easy to do. It's just, like I said, it's just getting them. Same thing with the watches. It's just getting them.
Just got to be in line, be there waiting, ready to go, and
Yeah.
just be
Or know
lucky
somebody.
enough, or be lucky enough to be selected or whatever.
Yeah.
Wow, crazy, man. Wow.
And so on the watches, I mean, what's the most expensive one that you've gotten and flipped? Like Rolex, is Rolex typically the go-to?
Well,
or
Rolex
like you hear
is-
those Philippe Patels or what is it called? Philippe?
Patek Philippe.
Yeah, Patek Philippe. Yeah.
And there's Audemars Piguet. There's different people say it differently,
Yeah.
but those are high dollar watches. So one, they're very hard to get.
Okay.
Sometimes you can broker a deal. So I've brokered a deal where me and another guy went in and bought a watch from somebody. It was verified that it was real and everything. And then we turned around and sold it to somebody else and we split the profit. Because when we're dealing with watches like that, they can get up there in price. You know,
Those are like
Rolex,
6-figure watches, right?
they can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they start in the, I mean, you can get like a AP Royal Oak for probably, they range so much.
Mhm.
It'd be 15,000, 30,000, 100,000. And it's the same thing. It's what material they're made out of. If there's gold on them, then they're obviously going to be more. But then there's some that are like carbon fiber. There's, you know, it just depends on the watch.
Gotcha.
That one, you got to do a little bit more research, and you got to buy from authorized dealers, and because there's a lot of fakes out there. Just like Jordans, there's a lot of fakes in Jordans too. So you got to be able to know.
Do you think you've gotten to the point now with the shoes and all that you could spot fakes versus reals, or I mean, they've gotten that good?
They're very, very good. I would say I'm pretty good at spotting them because there's some certain things like you can squeeze them and you can tell how good the material is. The padding around the tongue and around the ankle sometimes feels funny. And Jordans, a lot of Jordans, like the Jordan 11s, have carbon fiber on the bottom. Well, a fake, they might use real carbon fiber, but most of the time they're not. So you can kind of push on that and tell. So there's some telltale signs, but on somebody's foot, like yeah, without actually taking the shoe off and looking at it, it'd be really hard for somebody to tell.
Just eyeballing it.
Yeah. I know I have a lot of pairs of Jordans, and I've seen a lot of pairs of Jordans. I've handled hundreds of pairs of Jordans, and I wouldn't be able to eyeball it.
It's crazy. And then, another thing you've really opened my eyes with lately, or last couple times we've talked, is just, and this sounds like something, idiot, gold's worth something, but like you've really opened my eyes to like the value of precious metals and gold in particular. Like, when did you start collecting gold?
So, and I think I might have shared this story with you, but my grandfather told me a long time ago, and I have that coin here, is, a gold coin in 1900, which is this one here.
1900 gold coin.
It was worth $20. And the story that I was told is in 1920, with this gold coin, you could have bought a men's suit, fully tailored men's suit. Top, tie, pants, belt, shoes, everything. With this exact same coin, this coin right here, today, I can still buy a fully tailored men's suit. But for $20, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Because in 1900, this was worth $20. Today, it's worth $3,300. So, and then this coin is the 1979. That's the year I was born. Yeah, I'm old. But same thing. This was $230 in 1979. So it took 75 years for gold to go up 10 times. But now it's $3,300 an ounce, and it's only been 45 years. So what does the next 20 years look like?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
I heard once that if you put all the gold in the world in one place, it like wouldn't even fill up a football field.
Yeah,
which really like blew my mind. I was like, I'd never really thought about it like that, but like, you think about how big the whole earth is. Like,
yeah,
like all of the gold in the world can fit on one football field, and I think they said like it would be like a couple feet high, like which is like not that much when you think about it. It's just like blew my mind. But man, going from $20 in 1900 to $3,300 in 2025, like that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's a store of value. So I always think, if am I going to have money in the bank? You got to have money in the bank to pay your bills, and you got to have goals, and you might want to redo your kitchen and do some different things like that. But if other than that, And you got your retirement, you're paying your future self and you're doing all those things. Other than that, I try to put my dollars, my fiat currency into gold, because it's going to hedge inflation.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
There's
it's cool.
3,300 bucks in this little bitty coin.
Right.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Well, kind of flipping it to the more of the financial side, do you think we would ever go back to the gold standard?
Man, that's a really good question. And I wish I knew the answer to that. Yeah, there's rumors that it's going to go back to the gold standard. They're going to reevaluate or revalue gold. I think the U.S. Treasury values gold, whatever gold they have. They value it at $42 an ounce, is what they value it at. And then that's how much gold they have. I don't know exactly why they do that.
Wait, why would they value it at 42?
It's always been valued at 42 in the U.S. Treasury. But I wish I was more educated on that, but I'm not. I just know that that's what they kind of value at, the gold that they have. And if they revalue it and they go back to a gold standard, to your question, then that should drastically increase the value of gold.
Yeah. you
Because
think
now
so?
it's backing the U.S. debt.
Right.
No. I know that's been a lot of talks lately, especially with how popular Bitcoin and things like that have gotten, cryptocurrency and things. And I don't know. I just, like I said, gold's freaking cool. I wish I had owned some more gold or silver. But yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of people that I know and that are in the investment world that have been, like you said, spending their fiat dollars on more gold and silver and having it stored and stuff like that. So
yeah. And silver probably is, I think everybody should own silver. Me and a good buddy of mine have been buying silver for our kids. And this is where me and Zach were talking. I'm like, on their birthdays and Christmas, we buy them toys and we buy them things that 6 months from now they're going to grow out of.
Right.
So
A week from now.
a week from now,
They're
yeah.
going to be like not pumped about it anymore.
Yeah, they'll be playing with the box it came in versus the toy.
Yes.
That's what kids do. So why not start to do something for their future self, like buy an ounce of gold or an ounce of silver. You could buy an ounce of gold, but that's going to get really expensive really fast. But buy an ounce of silver for their birthdays, for their Christmas, and then just stack it away for them. So me and a good buddy of mine have been doing that for our kids. His kids are younger than my kids, but by the time they get where they know what silver is and know how to save money, they're going to have a pile of silver, and it's only going to go up over time.
Right.
It's historically shown that.
What is silver value at an ounce? Right now, roughly?
33.17 this morning.
Okay.
I look at it daily.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you do.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow. Man. Well, I know, Bill, I know you had kind of a crazy childhood and, you're real into combat sports. Is that how you kind of got into martial arts and stuff from the beginning?
Yeah. Yeah. So you and I talked on that a little bit. And some people that might watch this podcast kind of know my story a little bit. But yeah, I had a pretty crazy childhood. And the reason I got into martial arts was as a kid, I think the earliest memory I have is before I was in school. My biological father, who was a lifelong criminal, he would steal me and then take me to Texas or Florida or Kansas or Arkansas. And I would be with him. And then my mom would, one of my earliest memories is my mom coming in and her and my dad, that's been my dad my whole life, broke into an apartment and stole me back. Now, keep in mind that apartment was full of people that had just been partying the night before, a bunch of bikers over there. I was a little kid. I seen a bunch of stuff. I remember that stuff vividly.
How old were you?
Oh, I was probably 3 or 4, maybe.
Okay.
Just before I got into school. And they stole me back. That was one of my first memories of my dad that's been my dad my whole life. And then as I got into school, like in first grade, they broke in and stole me and I was missing school. So, and everybody knows you go back to school and everybody's like, where have you been? Yeah. And then as a little kid, I would just tell them where I was and, what I saw and what I was doing. And a lot of people thought they're like, oh, he's lying. And then I would get picked on and all this stuff. And then I would start to build up some friends. So that was first grade. So then second grade, nothing really happened. I'd start to build up some friends in third grade. I got taken again.
Your dad, your biological father would just periodically come and just take you,
Oh yeah, he would kick in the door and just take me.
grab you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, one of the times my sister, which is my half sister, but she's my sister. Like
Yeah.
we grew up together. and we love each other very much. And he was like, hey, just open the door and put the chain on the door. I just want to see. Everybody calls me Billy. He's like, I just want to see Billy. So my sister did that, thinking the chain would. He kicked the door and knocked my sister over, came in, grabbed me. And then one of the times, I can't remember exactly which time, but one of the times he was going back to jail. So then he sent me back home. And then another time we were in Florida, and my mom.
So is your mom like moving around trying to like hide from him? Or
No, well, they would never want him to know where I was.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I don't know if she was. That's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that. I always knew that she
moved
was
around a lot, right?
Yeah, I always knew that she was not wanting him to know, because his family, my dad's family, we were still close with. So like my aunt Kimmy and them, they'd be like, don't tell, Rick where Billy's at. And I always knew that growing up, but then I didn't put those two together until you just said that. I was moving a lot. So that's interesting. Another time, I was down in Florida, and I remember this. I was down in Florida for a long time, actually, and my mom hitchhiked down there to get me back, and she found me, and then my dad, and he was dating your girl, and I think her name was like Janice or Nancy or something, and my mom stayed in the trailer with us, and she tried to get her out of the window and me out of the window to try to steal me back, and that didn't happen. So she ended up leaving. And then I ended up getting on a plane and going back home. But my mom hitchhiked down there.
Oh, wow.
Mom's a badass.
Yeah, my mom is a badass. Yeah. And if you ever met my mom, she's a little bitty thing, can't hurt a fly. But she'll do anything for her kids.
She had to get her baby, man.
Yeah. So, and there's another story I always like to share. I think it's funny. Me and my wife and kids would always go to Florida every year. My wife's from Florida. So we would drive down there and we'd go to the beach and all this stuff. And we would always drive overnight. And just because we didn't want to hit traffic and
Sure.
the kids would sleep. It was just better.
We did the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same.
So a couple years, I don't know how many years ago, this 5, 6, 7 years ago, the kids were older, so they weren't sleeping overnight. So we just decided to drive throughout the day. And we're driving, and I come over this railroad track. And it was something hit me, and it's never hit me before. I slam on the brakes, I pull over, and wife and kids are like, whoa, what's going on? And I was like, I'm looking, and those old towns that never change?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking, and I'm like, I grew up in this town. I know where everything's at. And it was a place called Anna, Missouri. So I lived out there with my dad for a long time. I never knew where it was. I never knew it. But then I was like, if we drive down this road, we're going to see this building. We're going to go here. We're going to do this. And it was just one of those old little bitty towns that never changed. But coming over that bend in the daytime,
Just like him rushing back. To you.
it was like chills went over my body, and I pulled over, and I was like, oh, that's crazy. It was wild.
Crazy.
Man.
It's hard to explain, but when it hits you like that, it was unique and different.
And how old were you when you lived there?
That was probably 3rd or 4th grade.
Okay.
However old you are when you're 3rd or 4th grade.
Yeah. So.
But it all happened then, and then kind of lost touch with my dad because he was in and out of prison.
Gotcha.
So, and then ultimately, like when was the last time you got like stolen?
Probably 3rd or 4th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then,
Was that the last time you saw him?
Yeah. It was the last time I saw him up until 2017. He was getting out of jail. He was in Izard County, Arkansas, and he was getting out of jail. And he came to St. Louis, reached out to my mom, and we ended up meeting up. It's the first time I'd seen him for a long time. I was super nervous that
first
day.
time seeing him as an adult too.
Yeah,
yeah.
It was very, very hard, and I was pretty nervous through that whole thing. And sorry, you can probably tell in my voice. Well, I met him, and he said, "Hey, I got to go back to Izard County. I got to go back to jail. I broke my parole, and there's some stuff going on." And that was the last time I saw him because he was supposed to get out of prison. I think it was that June or July. He got released from prison on a Tuesday, and they found him stabbed to death on a Wednesday. And what's crazy about that whole thing is I was in Bull Shoals, Arkansas at the time, because we went to Bull Shoals, Arkansas every year for 10 years with my sister. Had tons of pictures, had, all kinds of stuff me and my daughter were doing. Well, me and my mom got investigated for the whole thing because that earlier, whenever I met my dad, my mom's like, well, you should get an insurance policy and I'll pay for it. And my dad, she's like, you never gave Billy anything and didn't have child support. And, if something happens to you because you're a knucklehead, maybe he'll get something. So my mom took out an insurance policy,
Oh,
and she
boy.
was paying for it. Again, like I said, my mom can't hurt a fly. My mom will
Yeah.
help anybody. Well, they were like, "Oh, you took out an insurance policy and you're paying for it. Your son was in Bull Shoals, Arkansas. He was murdered in Izzard County, which was like an hour away." So it's not like you see on TV. There was about a 6-month period where they were drilling me and my mom with questions.
Wow.
And I was like,
think that you guys like set it up and
yeah. And I kept telling I forget the guy's name now, but I kept telling the investigator out of Izzard County, I'm like, look, man, me and my mom had nothing to do with this. Like, I love my dad was not a good person, but he was good to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he loved me. I had good memories of him. I had crazy memories too. Like, I seen a lot of pretty horrific things, but it wasn't towards me.
Right.
So eventually he dropped it and they found out, you know, who did it and all that. So,
wow, crazy.
Yeah, you would think like the last thing I'm going to look at is the ex-wife and son for this when he's been in and out of prison and in a biker gang his entire life, you know?
yeah, he was a drunk. He was a criminal. He was, you know, I say a lot of bad things about my dad because I know he was not necessarily a good person.
Like
But
you
I
said,
learned a
he
lot.
He treated you well.
He
Like,
treated me
that's-
well, and he treated, you know, the people he loved, he treated well, and he would do anything for them. I did learn that from him.
Yeah.
I learned loyalty from him
Mm-hmm.
because the people he was loyal to, he was loyal to,
Yeah.
and sometimes you would see that because he would, you know, beat people up or do whatever. But I also know he did a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
So
Wow, that's crazy, man. So when did you start getting into martial arts? How did that?
so that was I kept that.
Yeah.
We kind of got sidetracked there, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, I kept getting
great story.
picked on and things like that. So then I started getting into some boxing and I started doing some judo and I tried taekwondo. I really tried all of them, but really I kind of did boxing for a while and judo for a long time. And then, you know, through grade school and stuff like that, I would get in scraps here and there and because people would try to pick on me. But that probably only lasted for like 2 years. Cause then I got pretty good at fighting. You know, for a kid, for a little
Right.
kid, I was a little scrawny guy, but man, like I just didn't give up. You know, I got my butt kicked a couple times too. You know, I got a broken nose, broken hand, you know, all that, but I still kept moving forward. But, you know, getting picked on when you're a little kid and then you start getting a little bit older, you start doing these things and then people pick on you. You're like, all right, I'm done, tired. I'm done getting picked on. You know, I was just at that mindset. I was like, I'm done getting picked on. Like, we're going to fight.
Yeah.
You know, but that was only for a year or two. And then I got in a bunch of trouble. So then I was like, well, I don't want to get in trouble anymore. And then, you know, I attribute a lot of this to started playing basketball a lot, you know, and that kind of kept me focused, you know, so I started playing basketball a lot and then I started getting friends playing basketball and, you know, and then joined a team and then there was camaraderie and I started to learn all those things where before I'd be at school for a little bit and I'd be gone. I'd be at school for a little bit and I'd be gone. So I didn't ever build that stuff up until middle school and high school. I didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
And when did you get into jiu-jitsu?
so I got into jiu-jitsu about 2013 or 14
Okay.
with Kyle. I was at Kyle's first school for a very, very small, short amount of time. And I was at the second school for a long time. I did take a hiatus because I had to get like shoulder reconstructive surgery. So I was out for about 2 years with that. And then
When was that?
that was in about 2017, 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was out for about 2 years on
Damn,
that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's before I knew you.
Yeah. When I came back to Kyle's, I think that's whenever you and I met.
Yeah.
It was probably that after
Yeah.
the
That
shoulder
makes
surgery.
sense. Yeah, that's about the right timeline.
Yeah.
I came to Kyle's in 2020.
Yeah. So I was out I think it happened mid 2017. I was out until like mid 2018. But then there was still a good 6-7 months where I was, anytime somebody would isolate that arm or shoulder, you know, I didn't drill hard. I wasn't going hard. I was out of shape because I couldn't do anything for so
Right.
long. So yeah, that's about that time frame.
Did you do any competing?
Yeah, I competed in 2014, I think. 2013, 2014. I was a white belt or maybe just got my blue belt and I did a Naga tournament. Gi and no gi. I won one and lost one.
Yeah. You ever think you'll ever compete again?
I think about it all the time.
Do you?
Yeah. Yeah. I think about it all the time. I just, with work, and now I'm thinking about it more because, you know, both my kids are grown. My daughter just had her wedding.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So now it's like I have a little bit more time.
Sure.
Work still gets in the way. Injuries kind of get in the way. But now I have more time to focus on it if I did want to do it.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've competed. I haven't competed since, what was that, like October last year. So I'm like, I was talking to Nick yesterday about it. I was like, yeah, I feel like I need to get one on the schedule sometime soon. Just as it's been a while.
Yeah. Well, that's the other reason I think about it all the time, because everybody we train with is always competing.
Yeah, 100%. Well, dude, I feel like every time I've competed, I feel like I definitely like level up a little bit, you know? Like, I just feel like I spend that, 4 to 6 weeks before, like really focusing on, like a specific game plan or whatever. And I just feel like I always like level up a little bit every time.
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite part about competing. Cause like competing itself, like quite frankly, like I'm not a huge fan of like that day you get all nervous and it's just stressful. And until you actually get out there and they blow the whistle and then you're going, then it just feels like a normal round, but a little bit more intense, but it's that lead up to it. There's always that anxiety, it's always a long day. You never know when you're going to go, and then sometimes, you'll have a long time in between matches. Sometimes you feel like you don't get a good warm up. Like I always feel like it's stressful, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah. And it makes sense. You're super focused you're always focused, but super focused, 4 to 6 weeks before you're going to dial some things in. You're going to learn some stuff. So that's another reason why I want to maybe think about competing, so I can dial in, but I want to go all in if I do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like looking at my schedule. I'm looking at different things. I'm like, I can't go all in because I don't want to do it half-ass.
Right.
And sometimes it's better. And I hear people say this and I envy it. Like, just do it. And I'm like, that's not how my brain works. But it's probably what I should do. I should just do it and just, but it's
hard because there's never, at least in my experience, doesn't never seem to be like a perfect time. There's always going to be a wedding or a whatever it is, a trip that you got planned or a kid's thing that you got to be at or whatever it is. There's always going to be something that's kind of on the schedule in the way, but it's just rare, especially like when you're not doing this as a career. It's just a total hobby. You know, it's like I'm not going to uproot my whole life to go compete and win a plastic gold medal.
Yeah.
Be one thing if it was a couple of those bad boys melted down.
Yeah. They start giving out gold, I'll be competing real quick.
Yeah, when I got into it, just never really that wasn't my goal, was to get into competing. But after going to like the couple CX BJJs that we've gone to, I'm like, maybe.
Yeah, I was telling you, you need to go to a tournament. It's a completely different vibe. It's a great vibe. It's just it's a lot more like it's just different, because it's like there's way less pressure than the CX BJJs, just because those are like
not all eyes on you.
Yeah, and it's like you're on this elevated stage, and it's just like you got the walkout and the whole thing. Whereas the tournament, it's just like, all right, next, like there's 10 other matches going on at the same time, so it's like really the only people that are watching you are like your teammates and your loved ones if they're there,
And the coolest thing about both those tournaments is the support you get from our team.
Yeah.
You can't ask for anything, more than that. So the lead up to it, the training, winning, all that's great. Mm-hmm. But when I go to those events, I see the support that everybody has for each other, and that's priceless.
That's the best part. I go to several tournaments and I'm not competing. I'm just there to watch everybody, and just like hang out and watch my friends compete or whatever. And that's another thing, like you said, with Watsons and everything, like, if there's a big tournament coming up and we got a bunch of people going, like that'll be Kyle's focus. Like, all right, we're doing tournament prep.
Yeah.
I know a lot of you guys aren't in here. A lot of you guys in here are not competing, but we're all gonna, this is still gonna benefit you because like, this is gonna help you come up with a game plan. Like this is, all right, we're gonna spend a week working on takedowns, and then we're gonna work that takedown into a pass, and then that pass into a dominant position, and that dominant position, the submissions that are available, and like kind of funnels everything into like a game plan. And okay, if you get taken down, like this is, what are you going to do? It just makes you think about all these things that, if you're just going in there and just going through the motions. Like you're not really thinking about it.
Oh yeah, you can tell whenever it's competition time because the intensity at the gym is a little bit higher. But it's nice. I to your point, I always go into that like, okay, this person's competing. What are you working on?
Yes.
How can I be a good uki, or how can I be a good training partner?
Right.
And I think it elevates the whole gym. I think Kyle does a great job at elevating the whole gym around the different time. If we're competing or not competing.
Right. Like for example, Blake's match a few weeks ago, we knew kind of his guy was like a close guard player. So like anytime I rolled with Blake, I was like, I'm going to throw him my close guard.
Yeah.
It's not my first choice by any means, but like, I'm going to put him in my close guard and make him work out of it. And I'm going to attack you the best I can from there. Might not be my A game, but like, I'm going to give you this look the best I can.
Yeah. Different looks.
Yeah. 100%.
Different body styles, everything. He just gets used to the different movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I love it. It's we just have such a good culture there. Amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, especially like I think what's cool too is like seeing, because what was like the last 8 fights or matches were all black belts. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I think so.
Just watching those guys at that level and that intensity, just like the technique and everything, like it was incredible.
Oh yeah.
Watching that skill level of being able to go at it for that long. Because they were going, 7-minute rounds?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Black belts were I think it was everybody purple and below was 5 minutes, and then browns were 6, and then black belts were 7.
Yeah. And I think there was 8 of them. 8 black belts.
There might have been. There was quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
It was
know.
awesome.
Yeah. I love going to those. It's just a cool atmosphere. And like, like I said before, I remember saying this a while back, but I was like, that's about as cool as it would ever get for me, like as far as jiu-jitsu goes, like I'm not going to ever be on some like big crazy stage or like, like that's about as cool as it can get.
Yeah.
So,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Well, I just love how it's getting more, it's becoming more and more popular. You've got, what was it? ADC was the big one last year with
CJI.
And then, Craig Jones. Mm-hmm. That was cool. That pit that they had.
Yeah, they're doing it again.
Yeah.
They're doing the trials and stuff now.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see how that's all going to, and I think this year.
Did you watch any of that? Greg Jones?
No, I watched Greg Jones'
Instagram.
Yeah.
Because I think he's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh
dude,
man.
He's so funny. You've seen those tattoos he got on his feet?
Yeah. He's hilarious.
He got "fuck you" tattooed on the bottom of his feet. So that when he's like laying on his back in his guard, it's so funny.
But no, it was pretty cool. The way they had it set up and the way they did it, and then to compete at the same time as ADCC was pretty cool. That was a fun fight night. We had ADC. We did a fight companion, and we had ADCC, CJI, and then
the UFC fights.
Which was that
It was the one where Max fought Ilya, whenever that was.
Yeah,
I can't remember, but
it was like last September or
it was September.
Something like that.
Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah.
Well, has there ever been anything you've learned? Has jiu-jitsu taught you anything? That's helped you in business?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I think jiu-jitsu teaches you a lot in business and life and everything. Just trying to manage, your stress level, anxiety. You're managing those things become easier. You hear that all the time, and I tell people that don't train jiu-jitsu, like, hey, I'm trying to sell people on coming to train jiu-jitsu.
100%. Me too.
All of us do.
Yeah.
But it's those things that they don't realize can impact their day to day. So, I've been in sales pretty much my whole life, sales and sales management. So it's always managing stress and always chasing goals and always, doing those things. And it's just jiu-jitsu helps you focus.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're at work, you're on the mats, you're doing family stuff. It seems like you stay more focused and not as much anxiety and stuff.
Yeah. All that stuff's stressful. And that's the great thing about jiu-jitsu is like when you step on that mat, kind of the whole rest of the world kind of shuts off.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Kind of, you got to focus on that problem at hand in front of you, because otherwise you're going to get strangled.
Oh yeah. No, for sure.
Oh man.
Well, and with everything you've gone through, crazy childhood upbringing to where you're at now, getting into jiu-jitsu, being a father, how are those things kind of redefine masculinity and what is and the responsibility of it to to you? What does masculinity mean to you, or how has it been redefined as you've gotten older?
Oh man, that's a complex question. I mean, when I think about fatherhood and managing people, or, you know, being a good friend, all of those things are what make you a good human being or a good man. I'd have to think about that. That's a complex question.
Yeah, we get deep here.
Yeah, that's a deep one.
What was the biggest mindset change you had as a young adult?
Oh, that's a good question too. I would say, and I think I'll kind of, me and you had a question about this at one point too. You don't realize it, but this is where it came from. Younger career, I was constantly traveling, opening up new stores. I used to work for a company called Ultimate Electronics, and we opened up a lot of stores. We sold high-end electronics, and I worked for Gold's Gym for a number of years too. And I ran sales teams there. And I was chasing the almighty dollar in my 20s. I had kids young. So keep in mind, I had kids young, but I was also...
How old were you when you had your first?
19. Yeah. And I started managing when I was 20. And then I grew into multi-unit management, executive vice president, and some different things. We were opening up multiple stores, and I was traveling constantly. I was in and out of town all the time, or working really long hours. You know, I was just grinding. In my 20s, I was like, I just got to grind. I just got to work. I got to make money so I can buy things. And I always emphasize that. It's this things. I don't even remember the things that I bought back then. But I do remember the vacations and the family and that stuff. So one day I got home after multiple trips and being out of town, and my kids looked different. And I was like, oh, I got to do something about this. I got to change this. This isn't good. I'm chasing to get things, and I'm losing time. So if you remember this, I'm curious if you remember this, we had a conversation about you coaching at Watson's, and I don't remember exactly when we had this conversation, but you're like, yeah, I'm thinking about coaching, but I'm also got this going on. And I told you, I was like, you coaching is good, but those people that you're coaching that are white belts, that are going to be blue belts, that might not even stay, because we know that the turnaround on that is a lot. I said, that time is going to be it's going to be better spent with your new kids and making those memories than trying to help the blue belts. Kyle might not like that because he wants a coach, but training the white belts to become blue belts, or go from the beginner's class to the advanced class, you got two little ones. Yeah. So I was like, in my back of my mind, I was like, that time with your little ones is way more important than you coaching. And I don't remember if you tell us having that conversation. This, the whole time we had that conversation, I'm thinking back when I was in my 20s and I got home and my kids looked different. And I was just chasing the almighty dollar to try to buy things. And I was like, those things don't even mean anything. Like, what do you remember? Do you remember the car you had 10 years ago, or do you remember the family vacation you were on? Right. Yeah. I can tell you everything I did on vacation. I don't remember what car, and I love cars. Yeah. I don't remember what car I had, but I remember everything we did on vacation. So that's one of the things I learned as a young adult that I always try to think back to.
Yeah. So that's powerful. I mean, definitely. I remember I remember having that conversation in the locker room at Watson's, and I mean, I did. I've stopped coaching a year ago now, and ever since our second was born, and but yeah, no, I can totally relate to that, because I was having a conversation with my wife. I think I've said this on the podcast before, so I apologize if you guys have heard this before, but I had a conversation with my wife a little while ago, and I was like, man, I feel like I'm a lot like closer with our youngest, than I was with our oldest at this point when he was, 7-8 months or whatever he was. And yeah, Gina was like, well, you're around a lot more, and I was like, ooh, that really hit me. And that made me like really like fucking reflect on those first few years of Calvin's life, that like, I was just constantly grinding with real estate. And I mean, I still work very hard now, but like my family is more of a priority, I've made them way more of a priority than they were for me a few years ago. Like I was constantly, just showing houses or being out, being gone, doing whatever, networking, doing all the things, to bring my sales up. And you know, and then I look back and I'm like, man, I did miss, you know, I wasn't around as much as I could have been those first 2 years of Calvin's life. And like, you know, he may not remember that, but I will, you know, I'll remember that I wasn't there as much.
Yeah. And there's a delicate balance there though, because that's what you always got to kind of pay attention to. You're doing those things for your family. You're working hard for your family.
Right. You're still teaching your kids lessons at this, like, even though you're not there, you know, those are still lessons being learned. That's how I've always thought about it. You know, now, I mean, it's worked out. I mean, divorce sucks. Don't get me wrong. Not having your kids all the time sucks. But I was actually talking to Gina about this the other night. I was like, yeah, it's worked out really well, because now when I do have my kids, I'm able to, like, hey, I can take 2 days, because we have them every 2 days. I can take those 2 days and shut down early and schedule everything else for the days that I don't have them. So now I'm solely focused on my kids for those days that I have them, where like I'm spending more quality time with my children now, having them 50% of the time than I did when I was with them 100% of the time.
Wow.
So
yeah, it's just that balance.
Yeah.
You gotta recognize it and then make the proper adjustments.
Yeah.
You know, that's with anything in life.
Oh, for sure.
But specifically around kids, that was the turning point for me and both of you guys.
Right.
You know, you have your different experiences, but kind of the same thing.
Oh, for sure.
The quality time.
Totally. And how old are your kids now?
27, 21.
Wow. Crazy.
My kid's young. Yeah.
What's that shift like from you know, them as they grown up? How's that relationship shifted now that they're adults now?
I love it. Me and my kids are very, very close. And having kids young like that, you kind of grow up with them. So we're friends. So like me and my daughter still have daddy-daughter date. We'll always have that. Her husband knows that. I actually talked about it at our wedding. You know, that always happens, but now we go on double dates, you know, and my son drinks whiskey and smokes cigars with me.
Yeah. I saw that. I remember, you know, because you said he's turning 21. So it must've been pretty recently. I remember you like,
he's 27.
My
daughter's 21.
Okay,
yeah.
Then I'm thinking of something else then. But I remember you just having whiskey and cigars with your son. Like I'm like looking at myself like, man, that'll be cool. You know, and 20 years from now when I get to sit down and, you know, have a drink with Calvin or whatever, like that's like, just seems so far away from right now. But I know that, you know, it's going to fly by.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, it flies by for sure. And I would say having my kids young and now like all of their friends I'm friends with, like I know that they're friends, but like if I see them, like I'll be at the gym working out, all of their friends are like, hey Bill, you know, like we're like not that I'm their age, but I'm also, my son's 27. I mean, all of his buddies grew up and I was the goofball dad that was only
the young dad,
the young dad,
fun dad.
Yeah.
The young
they had
cool
the cool
dad,
car,
the cool car and the cool shoes and the,
yeah. So we still talk about those things. Like me and his friends, we talk about, we drink whiskey together. We smoke cigars. We talk about shoes. We talk about cryptocurrency. We talk about trade. Like it's having kids young is, I think it was great.
Yeah.
So.
Well, cause now, you know, I mean, you look and you're still young enough to do all the fun things. You know, I look at a lot of my friends that, you know, they're, you know, like, yeah, I want to have kids. And I'm like, okay, well, you're in your early 30s. Like,
about time.
It's like, okay, well, you know, you need to find a girl first and you need to, you know, probably date her for a few years and make sure she's the one before you commit to having kids. Okay. So then you're in your mid 30s and then, you know, in the late 30s and like, you gotta get on it. Cause if you're, you know, cause it's like, if you start now, then by the time they're graduating high school, you're, you know, in your late, you know, you might be in your 60s and it's like, you know, or whatever it is, you know, it's like, yeah, I think there is something to having them earlier.
Oh, for sure. I mean, my parents were older when they had myself and my brother. And I mean, yeah, it was different, like different growing up with them versus the relationship my friends had with their parents. And I'm glad that, you know, I had Connor, I was 30 when Connor was born and 31 when Oliver was born. So
yeah, and it's like, yeah, I want to be that. I want to be the cool dad that's still, you know, it's just even more of a reason to like stay in shape and like take care of ourselves. Is like, man, I want to be able to. I always want to be. I saw something recently. It was I thought this was a really fun idea. But this guy, he's like, every year on his son's birthday, they have a foot race.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, I'm never gonna let my. And then and the dude was like, this guy was like in his like 60s or something, and I think this son was like in his 40s, and like even on his birthday, like, and he's 60 and he's still beating his son in a
Oh,
race.
wow.
Yeah, which
That's
is
awesome.
like crazy. I was like, dude, that's so cool.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm always gonna be able to beat you in a race.
That's great.
You know, but it's just like, yeah, we just gotta stay healthy so that we can do the fun things. You know, I mean, like right now, like, you know, I'm sitting on the floor and playing with my kids. Like, you know, like I'm just happy that I'm able-bodied enough that I'm able to like just do those kinds of things. And as they get older and start playing sports, and even if it's a sport that I'm not good at or whatever, I'm gonna figure it out. You know, if my son gets into golf or whatever, something that I suck at, like, okay, well, I guess I gotta work on golf. You know, I gotta figure out how to like get better at this with him so that I can, you know, help him and, you know, do this with him so maybe it can be our thing or whatever, you know? So,
well, and then too, I mean, think about it like this too, because I mean, our last two guests are grandfathers, and talking about the relationship that they're developing with their grandkids. It's like, all right, well, I mean, at that point, you know, Connor and Oliver, when, you know, if they wait to turn 30, I mean, I'll be 60. I'm hoping that I'm still in good enough shape at that point to
sit down
and play with the grandkids.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Like, you know, kids play on the floor. You want to get on their level, you know?
Teach them jujitsu.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Be rolling around. Be like Big Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big Mike. He's a great guy. Nice conversation with him yesterday.
Good.
Oh man. So where did so do you trade bourbon as well? Or are you just kind of a collector of that? I know you're really
I drink a lot of bourbon. No, you can definitely trade bourbon.
I've talked to Pat about that.
I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't got into that yet because most of the bourbon that I have, I drink.
Yeah.
So I do have a couple bottles that are highly sought after that I could probably trade. And one of the things I try to do there is I always try to, if it's a really expensive bottle, and bourbon's kind of complex because everybody has a different palate and the prices vary so much. So if it's a really expensive bottle, I try to go find it somewhere and taste it before I open it. Because if I taste it and I'm like, I don't really think it's worth that. And I can trade it for multiple other bottles that I know that I like, then I'd be willing to do that. But I haven't done that yet. Because I do have a bottle in mind that I have at the house right now that I'm like, it's a really good bottle. But I don't think it's worth, I'll probably trade that for something else.
I'll be honest. I don't think any bourbon is worth the secondary prices that they're being sold for.
True.
Like, I'm in a baseball group, former professional baseball players, and we trade bourbon all over the country with each other. And like, we can find Buffalo Trace pretty easily here. They can't out there. Buffalo Trace is a $30 bottle of bourbon, and I'm trading it for Barrel Pick, Eagle Rare, E.H. Taylor, things like that. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll go buy out the whole friggin' store of Buffalo Trace so I can trade it for this stuff. I mean,
all day.
Buffalo Trace is like my everyday sipper. Like I love Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, these guys, they're like, yeah, we can't find it. We can't get it. And then like Weller, I know, in Ohio, you got to buy all that liquor from state stores. So I've got connections in Ohio when I played baseball there that I'm like, hey, if you're ever at a state store and you see any of these bottles, because they can't mark them up at a state store, so they can sell them, but I mean, they sell out quick. So if you happen to come across these bottles, I buy as many as they'll allow you to of each bottle, and I will pay you for them.
Yeah.
Because I know I could I mean, Weller Foolproof isn't one of my favorites. It's good. It's not one of my favorites though, but I know I can trade that for probably 4 or 5 bottles of something, like you said, something that I like.
That's funny because Weller Foolproof is one of my favorite.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Foolproof over the 12-year and over all the other Wellers.
Yeah. Really?
Mm-hmm. Everybody's palate's different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I like the 12-year. The CYPB is pretty good. I had that the other day, and I like that. But I mean, do you know the difference between Weller and Pappy?
What are you talking about, like the Van Winkle or the Pappy? It's the age and it's the proof point.
Well, but made by the same distillery. Pappy just gets to go in and pick the barrels that they want first, and then Weller goes in next and picks theirs from all the stuff that I've read. And
really?
Yeah.
Well, the reason Pappy got so popular was the Stitzel Weller. It used to be Stitzel Weller, and then Buffalo Trace bought it. So the Stitzel Weller juice is a little bit more sought after than, because that was made at the Stitzel Weller house.
Right.
But those bottles were like, I think 2004 before. Mm-hmm. So now it's all Buffalo Trace stuff.
Yeah, and then you had the whole scandal of people stealing it, which is a pretty cool documentary.
Oh yeah, I've seen that on Netflix. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So
crazy.
But I mean, honestly, one of my favorites is, and it's really, it's secondary. It's tough to get, but I mean, I love High West's Midnight
Dram.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's so good.
That's a good one.
So good. But that's tough to find.
Yeah.
So.
High West does a good job. I like a lot of their expressions.
Yeah, their Boo Rye is another really good one that I like. So
A buddy of mine just picked that up like a couple days ago. The new Boo Rye.
I found it at beer
Barrel and Blends.
No, beer smoke.
Oh yeah,
something. There's one. There what used to be one.
Sunset Hills in Manchester.
And then and so I went in there and they had like 4 or 5 bottles of it on there that I bought. I think I bought 3 of them when I was there once, and
Nice.
at retail, I mean, I think it was like $75. So
Oh yeah, all day. That's a great bottle.
right, it's delicious. Didn't last long, but yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about that. You buy one of these high end bottles and you like don't even know if you like it or not.
Mhm.
I always try to find a tasting.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought about that, but that makes complete sense. Because like, man, what if you open this and you're like, fuck, I just spent whatever on this, and now I feel like obligated to drink this whole thing because it's expensive, and I'm like, man, I really don't like it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, but Blanton's, Blanton's is good. I don't mind Blanton's, but I'm not paying $200 for a bottle of Blanton's. I'll pay $60, the retail price for it. But I got a real estate agent that I was working with a handful of years ago, and he went down to Texas, and he was able to buy a case of Blanton's at retail, and he brought it back, and I bought a couple bottles off of him and drank them, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? Nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have Eagle Rare.
I always tell people Blanton's is the quintessential bourbon.
Yeah.
If it's just the basic,
Yeah.
This is what bourbon should taste like.
Mhm.
It's not overly proofed. It's not overly oaked. It's just, this is bourbon. So if
Yeah.
you drink Blanton's and you don't like Blanton's, you might not like bourbon.
Right.
There's better bourbons.
Yeah.
In our
No,
opinion.
like I said,
with you.
I'm not. It's not that I don't. It's not that I didn't like it. It's just like not for $200.
Yeah. It's just
$60. Hell yeah.
It's a good bottle for 60.
Heck yeah.
So you can't find Blanton's here.
Bland's is tough to
It's
get.
tough. Yeah.
That's weird.
It's one of those like allocated. So like, there's only so much like allocated across. Like, and then once it wins an award or something, and they make it even more allocated and just drives the price up even more. So.
And they have a cool bottle, and they have
with
a horsey
the little
thing.
horse thing. Yeah.
But you spell out Blanton's with if you collect. So their marketing is great.
Right.
Yeah.
They did a good job with
Makes
that.
you wanna
Those bottles are
collect it.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, there's no other bottle that I can think of where there's like, a little figurine on the top,
Right.
And,
Yeah.
the little stuff. Yeah, that's cool. Well, Bill, when you think about skill versus will in management, how do you weed out people that are just pretending to have drive?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think, so I do that a lot. Whenever I was training managers, I have a story that I like to share and tell new managers. And it boils down to a couple things: skill and will. Somebody could have all the skill in the world, but if they're not willing to apply it, you can't really teach them anything. Now, if they have all of the will in the world and they have no skill, we can teach them. So I would always, anytime I have somebody coming into sales, I would try to find that trait in them, the skill and will. Because like I said, if they're willing to try a bunch of different things, I can take their skill and help develop them. Or I can say, hey, this is the top performer over here. Let's do what they're doing. You can tweak it all you want, but let's try it. And then they try it and they come back to me and they say, well, that works or it doesn't work. Okay, cool. Let's try something else. Let's try something else until we find something that sticks for them, because everybody's personality is different, especially in sales. So if they're willing to do those things, we can teach them the skill. But if they have all the skill in the world and they don't have the will to apply it, then can't really do much with them. And so that's the first part when I think about developing salespeople or managers. And the second part is it's really hard to manage the people in the middle. And I always like to explain that. And I always, I go back to anytime I was developing a new salesperson or new manager, this is the things that I would tell them. One of our first meetings is the people in the middle are the hardest to manage, because we hope they're going to do good. We see glimpses of goodness, of skill, of will, but they're not all the way dialed in. So we might not have that critical conversation with them that day because we're like, oh, we hope today's a good day, and then it doesn't be a good day. And they're like, oh, I'm going to have a tough conversation with them tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes, you're like, ooh, they're in a good mood. Maybe today's going to be today's going to be a good day. So I don't manage that person. Versus the people that aren't good employees, they're easy to manage. I always say everything good in life comes by helping others. So I help those people find a different job. I promote them to customer. That's another way to put it. It's positive. It's a positive spin.
Positive spin on it. Yeah.
But
Promote them to customer.
Yeah, promote them to customer. It's positive.
Yeah.
No, but you have those people that it might not. They're not in the right seat on the bus. They might not even be on the right bus. You know, and that we come across those people in business where they might not be a bad person, but they might have bit off more than they can chew, or they're not willing to apply themselves. You know, if you now, it's still on you to train them and do your due diligence and make sure that that is the case. But then if you find that person that's not a good employee, they're not showing up on time, they're negative, they're dragging down the staff and all, those are easy to manage. You manage them out. The middle people are the ones that are hard. And then the people that are top performers, those are easy to manage too. You give them high fives, you take them out to lunch, you still hone in on their skills because they still need attention and love. But it's the people in the middle, those are the hardest ones to manage. And it's having those critical conversations with them and yourself. You know, you got to prepare for those meetings because they're going to say, well, I do this and this and this good. And they might, you know, but you have to say, yeah, but are we doing that every day when we come in? That's what I call a critical conversation. A lot of managers will, I think they're going to do good today. So they pass on that conversation. They avoid the conversation. Yeah. It's not a comfortable conversation a lot of times.
Sucks. Have you guys ever read the book Crucial Conversations?
Oh yeah.
That's a good one.
I read a lot of books when it comes to management.
Yeah.
The other story I share with people, especially new managers, and it goes down to, I always say, I go back to what I said earlier, everything you want is on the other side of helping others. So I had a good customer, or not a customer, I had a good employee, model employee, showed up on time, always positive, always hit his numbers. If somebody called in, I could call him, he'd be there. Performance was great. And I went to him one day and I said, hey, we got to get your numbers up. You know, we got to focus. We got to dial in. We got to do this. We got to. And he was like looking at me and he was like, well, I thought I was doing pretty good. And he was model employee. So we came up with a game plan. We started dialing in on certain things to get his numbers up, to get his sales up. And we worked on this for a number of months. We dialed in and his motivating, I always talk about this too, is his motivating factor was he wanted a little bit of more time off. So I said, okay, if I can get you a little bit more time off, leave a little bit early this day, leave a bit early that day. You know, we got to get your sales up. So he had a motivating factor because if he got his sales up, he was going to get a little bit more time off. And some people would look at me and they're like, why does he get time off? I'm like, because he's already a top performer. And now we've scaled that a little bit. For when he's there, he's working a little bit harder because he knows he's going to have a little bit of time off. That's a good trade-off. Mm-hmm. But that's a delicate balance too. But this person, I was pushing him and getting his sales up. Hey, get it a little bit early. I know you're going to leave a little bit early, but get here a little bit early. Let's get all of this paperwork out of the way so we can focus on sales. We can get your sales up so we can get you more commission. We did this for a number of months. And 9 months went by. He had a baby. This is why I did that. So he had a baby. And I knew what his goals were outside of work. As a good manager, I always taught my managers, know what their goals are, not their goals at work. Everybody's got goals at work. Everybody stresses and gets anxiety about hitting their goals. You want to sell so many houses. You want to do so many loans. I want to do so much product at the bank. But what are the goals outside of work that drive that? So his were, he had a baby on the way. He had an old beat up car. He wanted a new car. He wanted to move out of his apartment and into a home with his fiance. Well, we increased his numbers over and over and over. Every day I was talking to him. 9 months come by. He comes to me. He's like, I am so glad you did that because diapers are expensive. Yeah. They are. And he came to me and he's like, formula's expensive. Babysitting is expensive. I'm moving into a new house. And I looked at him and I told him, I said, that's why 9 months ago, I got you. I got your back. So when you talk about managing people and servant leadership and doing what's right for them. So from that point on, do you think he had my back?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
He was focused on my goals.
Yeah.
So everything you want in life comes from helping others. So now he had my back 100%, no matter what, because he knew it hit him in the face. It was like, bam. He was like, you came to me 9 months ago because I told you I was having a baby.
Yeah. And you're like, let's get those
go.
numbers up. Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. I had 2 kids.
Yeah.
I know what's about to happen to you. Yeah. So what I would always tell them, I would share that story with people because I would tell them, if you're managing people or a teammate or you're coaching somebody, it doesn't matter what it is. Everything you want comes on the other side of helping others. If I just truly want to sit down and help this person exceed in whatever they're doing, it's going to help me. You know, it's going to help me in my goals.
Sure.
Is it going to hit the goals of the gym? Like this was a gym employee. Is it going to help hit the goals of the gym and memberships and personal training and all? Yeah, those hit my goals too. It hits their goals, hits my goals. But at the end of it, if you get granular, it helps him hit his goals to buy a new car, to move out of his house, to pay for diapers. What did it do for me? I wanted to go on vacation. I wanted to buy a muscle car. I wanted to buy gold. I wanted, all of those things. That's what the real goal is. That's just a byproduct. Like that's just what we do to get to our goals.
Right.
We hit our goals at work to get to our real goals. So anytime I have a new salesperson or a manager, I try to have that conversation with them to say, this is what it's really about. So me and that individual are still really good friends. Because you think about all the, like, I know you used to like serve, like be a server, right?
Yeah.
Think about all the people you worked with.
Oh yeah.
And you managed and all of that stuff. How many of those people are still friends?
I don't know. Not very many of them.
So
There's very few from the restaurant industry that I still stay in touch with, to be honest.
yeah, so I always try to, like, a lot of the people that I worked with, and the only reason I think that we're still friends is because, our managers are always looking out for what was important to them. Does the goal help them get there? Yeah, if they hit their goals, they get more money. They can buy those things. But if you do it for the right reason, if your intention behind it is good, you're going to build really good relationships over time. So,
Have you ever read the book Servant Selling by Dave Brown?
I've not read that one.
He's a business coach for what the company that I do my coaching with, and he wrote a book called Servant Selling, and it's very similar
Is
to
it?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was curious if you'd read it.
Yeah, I'll have to write that down and take a look. I love books like that.
Yeah.
And I always read books like that, and I'm like, if I could take one or two things
Right.
away, and apply them,
Right.
Then that's good.
Yeah. I think where people make a mistake is they read one book and then they try to apply that whole book
Yeah.
to one thing instead of just trying to take little tidbits from it and apply little things at a time. I mean, you're not going to be able to go over and overhaul your entire existence off of one book.
Have you ever read the book Good to Great?
Mm-mm.
So Good to Great kind of speaks to that.
Okay.
It's basically you can be good at 10 things, but instead of being good at 10 things, be great at 2 or 3.
Right.
It goes into a whole bunch of business stuff
Mhm.
too, and talks about Walgreens and Coca-Cola and how they, grew as a company and some of the things they did. So it's a really, really good read as well.
Okay.
Good to great.
Good to Great.
Good to Great.
Okay, I'll check that one out. I need a new book.
Now, would you say that the story you just told is that one of the more powerful moments that you've made like a lifelong impact on an employee, or is there another one that stands out?
Yeah, one that pops out when I say a powerful, when I think about the change that somebody had. I had an employee that was going to get promoted to customer, and I actually had a conversation with this person, and I said, it was on a Thursday or Friday, and I said, hey, we've been going back and forth on this training, and I've done my due diligence, it's a skill and will thing. I said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 days off, and 3 days off in this company means they were getting the final paperwork together and you're going to be fired. I said, I'm going to give you 3 days off, but I'm not calling HR, which was the indicator that like you might not be fired. But what I want you to do is I want you to think about it over the weekend, and I want you to come in Monday and you're going to interview for your job, and you're going to, knowing what I know that your current work ethic is. I said, so Monday, I want you to tell me all the reasons why you should keep your job and what we're going to do moving forward. I've had that conversation before, and those people, some made it, some didn't. This individual came back on Monday, dressed the part, was ready to go, sat down and says, we did an interview. I interviewed and I said, well, in this situation, what would you do? In this situation, and these were real situations that we had already experienced together. And what I found in that was the coaching and training I did during that time was some of the answers I got back. So they were listening. They took notes. And this was over time. This wasn't just recent. So I knew that they were listening. So Long story short, to answer that question, I think that was a really impactful moment because she later became a gym manager for me and was a damn good one. And she had a mindset shift and she started applying some of those things. And then when she started finding more success, when she started applying those things, she started asking more questions. And when she started asking more questions, it gave us more opportunity to coach. And then she started getting more belief and just more trust overall. Till this day, we're still really good friends. And that was somebody that was 2 days away from being fired.
Wow. That's awesome.
But you have to give, so I always say 2 chances, never a third. If I have a critical conversation with you, we've done all the coaching, we've done everything that we can do, 2 chances, never a third. In business.
Yeah.
And that's in a lot of things, actually.
Right. Oh, for sure.
We're at a bar and I give you 2 chances to walk away and you don't. Yeah, there's a lot of things that applies to.
Yeah, it's like fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. There won't be a third time.
Yeah, exactly. But I apply that a lot to, coaching and developing people.
Wow.
Do you do a lot of coaching with what you're doing now within the wealth management space?
Yeah. So I don't manage people anymore. But I miss it, but I don't miss it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy what I do. But I do find myself, I run a monthly call for our entire market. I do a lot of training around that. And then I have a lot of partnerships within our, we have mortgage, we have the bank side, we have small business, we have credit card specialists, US Bank.
Okay.
So I partner with all of those different groups and I do a lot of cross training with those groups, specifically around sales and asking questions, open-ended questions and tie downs and, things like that. But it all boils down to, it doesn't matter. Zach wants to sell houses. It all boils down to what you do for, you want to sell houses, but ultimately it's helping somebody.
Right. Yeah.
So everything you want comes on the other side of helping somebody. You want to
Relationships
sell a
over
house.
transactions.
Yeah. You want to help them find the home of their dreams for their family.
Right.
So,
or I want to help you get out of this, you inherited this house and you don't want it. And but you need the money from that house to go do whatever, it's like, I'm helping you get there. That's how I always look at it. There's a guy that I follow. I've been following him since really since I got into the real estate industry, but his whole thing was relationships over transactions.
oh yeah,
And it's like,
for sure.
Think about, don't think of the people that you're helping, that you're working with as transactions. So they're people, they have lives. There's a reason you're there to help them. And if you make that your focus, you're going to be successful.
That brings up a really good point. Another thing that I always try to pay attention to is I would ask people, who is the most important person in your life? Mine's my mom, my kids, my wife, everybody. But, when you think about who one of the most important people in your life is my mom. She's only here for a certain amount of time. So I cherish that time. Somebody else might say it's my uncle. My uncle raised me. Somebody else might say it's my grandparents. My grandparents raised me. So then every time you're helping somebody, think you're helping them or think you're helping somebody they sent you. That's going to make you, want to do the right thing and just help them versus a transaction.
Yeah. Great advice. Well, I've got a question, but I probably think I know the answer. What's more satisfying, making a great trade or watching someone you mentored crush it in business?
Oh yeah. Second one.
Second one for sure.
Yeah, for sure. If you can help somebody and the one thing I like is when you take that salesperson, the skill and will, and you start teaching them something and then they go try something, come back to you. That didn't work. They go try something else, come back to you. That didn't work. Then they go try something. They're like, that worked great. That's my thing. And then they start using that over and over and over and then start to dial that in. Then the part that I like is when I get the next person and I say, hey, go watch them do this. Because they learn that and they that's whenever, your training and your development stuff really sticks is whenever the person you train is not, it's just like jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Kyle trains somebody and now that person becomes, Kyle probably gets, I know he does. He gets enjoyment out of, hey, now my black belts are training other black belts.
Right. Yeah.
That's just in life.
For sure. 100%. Wow. Great.
Awesome. Speaking of trades, what's one of your most successful trades you've made on a card?
Ooh.
One of your largest.
So that's probably I don't know if I touched on it, but that probably goes back to
The one when you were a kid.
one where I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because that card I bought the card that I traded at like a Target or a Kmart. I think it was like $20. And I traded. So what ended up with these two cards, I got to tell the full story, was I bought that card. It was an Alonzo Mourning autograph card. It was like $25. And I went to this kid and he traded me a 1984 Topps baseball set. It was his dad's. I didn't know that. But that's what he traded me.
He traded you his dad's stuff without.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole story behind it. You're about to hear it.
Okay.
So in that set, and I don't really know baseball. If you know me, I don't know a whole lot other than basketball. But I know this one because of the story. I know there was like a Kirby Puckett, Cal Ripken Jr., David Manningly or something like that.
Don Mattingly.
Yeah, that one. So that was this baseball set. It was a 1984 Topps baseball set, and it had like their rookie cards are in it.
Okay.
So he trades me this set, and I immediately go and I go to this. I call the car dealer, local car dealership, and I'm like, hey, and I'm a 12, 13-year-old kid, right? I'm like, hey, I have this baseball card set that I want to trade for some Jordans. Because I traded everything I got for Jordans. Didn't matter what it was. So he's like, well, yeah, this set's worth blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'll trade.
You call the car dealership for that?
Card. Like the local
sorry,
card shop.
I misheard you. Okay, I was
Yeah.
I'm like listening. Wait, you went to like a Chevy dealership?
Oh, yeah,
I was like,
no.
what the fuck?
No,
It's like,
card.
they take. I thought you were about to say, yeah, I traded the card for a car, and I was,
Oh, yeah.
I was like, well, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
13 years old. That's really good negotiating.
Yeah, I know. I was like, damn, Bill.
Then I went to the card shop and traded the car for these cards.
Oh, yeah. So it was a place on Manchester. It was called like 1 million baseball cards or something like that. So I called him and I said, hey, I got this baseball card set. I want to come down and trade it for some Michael Jordan cards. And he's like, okay, bring it down. So I literally traded the Alonzo Mourning, got the baseball card set. I was over at my cousin's house. My aunt was there and I'm like, hey, I need you to drive me down to this baseball card set, not card dealership. And so she drives me down there and I go in and I was like, hey, I want to trade this for these two. This is the rookie year sticker. So a lot of people peeled these because this is a sticker. So that's why it's really rare.
So
and then
the sticker on the original backing.
Yeah. So it's unpeeled sticker. And then a second year. So Jordan's rookie card is this one. I don't know if anybody wants to see that, but that's Jordan's rookie card. And this is the second year card, which is a really popular card too. So I traded that 84 Topps baseball set for these two cards. And I've had these cards ever since.
Wow.
So it was a $25 trade because he thought that Alonzo Mourning autograph was worth a lot more. And I didn't really know what it was worth. I knew it was worth less than that baseball set. So I was like, if that's what you want to trade, I thought it was his. Like he said, I want to give you this baseball card set for this. It's not like I went to him and said,
give me your dad's shit.
yeah, or give me this baseball card set. I didn't even know about the baseball card set. So he brought that to me, which will play into what happened next. So I traded it to him. I went and traded the baseball card set right away. Got those two Jordans. Get back home. Like 2 hours later, Dad calls. And he's like, hey, I need that baseball card set back. So my aunt calls my mom. My mom calls me. And she's like, hey, where's that baseball card set? And I'm like, baseball card set's at the card dealership. And so she tells me what happens. And my mom calls the guy back and she's like, sorry, like we don't have the baseball card set anymore. And they're like, well, we need those Jordans. And I'm like, that's not happening. So I told my mom, I'm like, Mom, I had this Alonzo Mourning card. He came to me and he said, hey, I want to give you this baseball card set for that card. That's what happened. Like, it's not like I was trying to get one over on the guy. I didn't know. And then, my aunt took me down to the card dealership, and I traded it. And so the guy was really upset. The dad was really upset, but I was like that. And then we called the card shop, and the card shop's like, no, we want to keep this set. Because at that time, that set was worth more than those cards. Now it's not even close. Those cards are worth way more than that baseball card set.
What are those worth now, you think?
8,000?
Probably 8,000.
A
And
piece or total?
total. Yeah. But that baseball card set now is worth a couple $100.
Yeah. Crazy, Bill. Wild.
Man.
Well,
That's awesome.
You've lived a crazy life, my friend. You do some cool shit, and I'm just thankful that I know you, and really appreciate you coming on today. It's been a lot of fun, Bill.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
I know you.
Yeah, but before we get you out of here,
We always like to end the show with one last question.
Uh-oh.
We call it the tombstone game. Here lies Bill. What's it say on your tombstone?
Oh, you know what? I watch your videos and I know you asked that question. loyal dad, loyal friend.
Perfect. Awesome. Again, thanks again for coming on, taking time out of your busy schedule to come hang out with us for an hour and a half.
Appreciate it.
Thanks to you guys at home for paying attention. Please click that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. That would help us out a ton. Click that like button as well. Comment what you thought below, and we will see you next time.